Welcome to episode 16 of YOUx2, where we're on an adventure discovering the two of us that are living this human experience, this little human character that we're playing, and the actor behind this character, that powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit being made of unconditional love. The last few episodes, we've been looking at how we can experience the spiritual world through these human five senses. And we started off with the proverbial mouth of our human. It's our self-talk, our speech, and even the emotional intentions behind all of that. And I'm going to wrap up this area of our five senses by looking at how we can create a hedge of peace and love around our lives. And it is something that we can do to actually bring this wonderful peace into our lives. And I have some pretty interesting stories to share. This human life experience can feel like a chaotic storm. The feelings of fear we experience here are uncomfortable because they are emotions we're not used to feeling and having back home in the spiritual realm. But we do come here on purpose for the purpose of experiencing those emotions. We contrast who we're not against who we really are, and that allows us to understand ourselves, our true selves, more deeply. And we start off this human experience just unaware of who we really are, so that we could have this pure experience as this human. Because if we remembered, this powerful, eternal, expansive being we are, we wouldn't be able to experience the limitedness and the smallness and the fear and, all these uncomfortable feelings we have in the human realm. But at that appointed time that we predetermined before we came down here, our soul was like, I want to experience this much of that humanness with that awareness of who I really am. And then click, suddenly something happens in our life to waken us up and to where we start to realize I'm more than this humanness. And like a little baby, when we're young, and you can see like a little baby when it discovers its hand and it just flies it all over the place, or its feet, and it starts kicking. It's like our soul starts getting used to that humanness when we're a little baby. And now, we can control our fingers and, act and move with very specific agility, and we're not like falling all over the place and hitting ourselves in the head and kicking people or slapping people in the face, like a little baby does. And the same thing happens with our power. That little child in us starts to experiment with this new power, this awareness that it comes in with its intentions and with this beautiful energy inside. And so we start having this little experiential, kind of mad scientist lab that we're in as we start to do things. And so my first experiment that I want to talk about is what I'm going to call Casper the Creepy Ghost. So a friend of mine, she very in tune with the spiritual world. In fact, she sees spirit where I haven't, yet seen that, probably because I told them, ease me into that because I don't want to poop my pants by suddenly seeing a spirit somewhere. But she saw it since she was very young. So she was at this place in her life, and she actually called me and said that she had this creepy kind of spirit that was hanging around her that she was feeling uncomfortable with. And of course, it was the beginnings where I was really opening up to my spirituality. And so I was immediately wanted to, protect. And so when I was on the phone with her, I was sending energy to push that away, push that spirit and protect her, get away from her. And she goes, I don't know whatever you're doing, but it's really making him angry. And she was he was agitated. And so she said, we'll see what she can do. I'm going to, talk to some other people. And I was going to see her the next morning at a little conference. And so I said, I'll see you then. And after I hung up, I was like, that doesn't feel right. This, that's feels angry. What I'm doing feels angry. What I feel feels of fear. So I'm like, you know what they're really being attracted to is her light. And so they want love and light. And so instead I opened up my arms to this spirit and I just flooded it with the love. I just let love flow in and flow out. And I did that for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happened. And then the next day, I actually bumped into her in the parking lot going in, which was, of course, serendipitous. And she was like, I don't know what you did after you got off the phone, but he immediately calmed down and drifted away. And so that was like my first experience of going, oh, so this protection, it's our little child inside of us, wanting to feel safe and in control. And so when I felt she was unsafe, I wanted to help and control it instead of just letting love do its thing. So that was like my first aha that came with that. And then the next experiment I want to talk about where I was able to apply that information is what I want to call the Love Shack. I know now I have that song going through my head too, but so the Love Shack, I had some other friends of mine who were living downtown in the city that I was in, and they had these old Victorian homes that converted into apartments. And they had me come down there previously because they felt like there was something that was watching them and disturbing them in their home. And, the whole again, that creepy feeling where they just felt this odd energy that was there. And when back then, I would sit on the floor and put my hands on the floor and just have that again, that love coming in. This is what I learned, right? Let the love come in and fill up the walls and the floors and the ceiling, and then the air just with love. And whatever is not of love, you need to leave here. And, just fill all that up. And so it was a beautiful, loving experience that we had. And then it was like, after that, they're like, yeah, we don't feel it anymore. And it had gone. And so I was like, that's cool, that we can create this loving pocket around us, which is kind of like the inklings and the beginnings of this hedge of love and peace that was coming into my life. But it was a few months, probably about 6 months later, they called me up and they said, one of them got into a kind of an emotionally and semi-physically abusive relationship, and they felt like that opened up the doors again because one of them other ones was having these nightmares. And so it was like, "Da, da, 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 I'm coming to the rescue. I'll come down there." And so I brought a friend and we all sat on the floor. And I started to do what I was going to do. But before I jump into that, I want to let you know that they would say one of them lived directly off of the kitchen, and there was this door that would stick. But suddenly the door would just open up by itself and it would be really cold in the area, which is like kind of spooky and creepy, right? But it was like, oh, okay. And so when again, I started the process, but this time it was weird. It was like spirit altered what I was doing. And they said, rather than, before I just pushed everything out, they said, change it to whatever is not supposed to be here out. And so as I was saying that, and I was like, whatever is not of, the highest experience and to be here needs to leave. And then in the kitchen, in the other room, that door didn't just open, it slammed open on its own and hit the table, the dining room table that was near it. Scared the crap out of everyone, except I didn't feel scared. I was like, no, I was all on the zone, right? No, he's supposed to be here. He's helping you through something. This is like a guide for you. So the nightmares that you're having aren't, these fearful things it's trying to do. It's trying to help you through your dreams. And that's what came through. And so that was a different experience. And come to find out later that she had some suppressed emotions of some stuff that happened to her when she was younger that she had totally blocked out of her memory because it was so painful. And the dream she was having was them bringing up the memories so that she could get that healed and solved and more like transformed in her life, so that it wouldn't be this programming that's running below the surface. So it was a very healing thing. And again, it's like, wow, okay. So I learned through that experience that, it's not about pushing people or circumstances out of the life. It's about being open and letting go of that control and having it be more of like, what's for the highest experience, what's for the highest good, and of unconditional love experience for this person. Which brings me into experiment number 3, which I call the X marks the spot. So this is like the X, not like X, but like X, boyfriend, ex-girlfriend out of your life. So this friend of mine actually had this, their boyfriend of theirs that was not leaving them alone. They had been broken up for a few months, but they kept on just antagonizing them. And they still had been like the same apartment complex because they had lived together, of course, in the same apartment. And then they got separate apartments, but they were still in that same complex. And they would drop by and they were blah, 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 and all this stuff going on. And they were just like, I am just done with them. And so I just asked them, I go, do you feel like they have finished like being the teacher that you need in this situation? Do you feel like there's anything else you can learn from the interactions with them? And they felt like, wow, no, I really feel like I'm good with it. I'm all this. They just won't leave me alone. And so can't you do any of your little stuff to make them go away? And so that's where I kind of started with well, let me see. And I kind of just inquired of the spiritual realm and just said, is this something that you want me to do for them? Are they really done with it? And I got a big nod from them, like, yes, they're done with this, piece of their experience with them. They're ready to move on. And so I was like, okay. I go, I won't do, the make them go away and blah, 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 or do anything like that, because I just don't feel that's of love, right? And so I want to focus on love. And I go, what I can do is again, this is where this hedge of peace really started expanding for me, this hedge of love and peace, is I go, I'm going to create this bubble of love around you, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to convert to light, or get out. So they either have to, it's like this big pocket of love and light, and if that darkness, that shadow, doesn't convert to light with their interactions with them, then they have to go outside the light, because shadow cannot exist in the presence of light. And so they were like, okay, let's see what happens. And so, all right, I'm going to do that. And so I went home, and I'll kind of go over a newer process that I use here shortly. But so I did a little process, and the next day they called me and said, oh my God, you won't believe. He called me and said he's being moved to Alaska. He was in the military, and so he's getting done. And I was like, I don't think it's done. I go, I feel like it's further away that they're going. And they're like, yeah, I don't care, but they're leaving, and they're leaving in a month, and they're getting transferred. So, woohoo! And they were very happy about that. Finally some peace. Well, the next week, they called me back and said, you won't believe it. Their orders were changed from Alaska to Germany. So overseas even, outside of the continental United States. So I was like, wow, this really does work, this intention, this beautiful, movement there. So throughout all these experiments, like this third one, of course, taught me that there's this underlying message not to push, things away, but just to create this pocket of love and light and allowing that's whatever's for my highest experience, every one of our relationships and interactions and circumstances too are all a mirror for us to see what we want to see about ourselves until we see it. And so we don't want to, push something away that's for us and for our growth when it's not ready to leave yet. So that kind of brought me into this hedge of peace process that I want to talk about now. Since those experiments, the use of this energy has evolved into this hedge of love and light, where rather than pushing everything around someone away, I instead create this hedge of love and light around a person with the permission of the soul behind this individual. And that involves letting go of my human expectations of what I think should happen and let the unconditional love energy flow through me and out to around this character. Life can feel like we're here riding a bunch of fear rides in a giant amusement park of fear, which over time can feel overly chaotic and overwhelming. So creating this hedge is like being able to take a break, get some ice cream, and go sit in a Zen meditation park away from all the people screaming on the rides and all those crowds of people in a frenzy running from ride to ride. In just a sec, I'm going to step through the process of creating the hedge. But of course, you can create whatever way that you want to do it, because I feel like the more uniquely you make it to the way you do things, the more impactful it is for you, because this physical ritual you're doing is for your activation of your intentions and of your energy. So trying to follow a set step is kind of takes us away into our mind and out of our heart. But take anything you want out of this, apply it, alter it, throw it out, and start something completely the way you want to do it. But I do caution you, and I usually caution anyone that I start the hedge for, is that when you start the hedge, it can push circumstances or people out of your life, either temporarily or permanently. So I had one friend I started the hedge for, and the person that she was having the challenges with called her up, within hours, called her up, cussed her out, hung up on her, and left her life and didn't come back. And she was like, oh my gosh. And I said, I asked before, are you really ready for this change? And she said she was. And obviously she was. Her higher self wouldn't allow it to happen if she wasn't. But her human character side was like, oh my gosh. Then I had another one. She was having difficulty at work with her boss. And when I did the hedge, the next week her boss got fired, which of course, it's like they change or they're out, and they changed and they went out. They were no longer in employment, and they're just like, oh my gosh. But again, it's when you create the pocket of love, those things happen. And a couple others, I had one who had someone who would call them like 2 or 3 times every day, and just, communication. And they were just like, I'm ready for this relationship to have some distance. I need a pocket away from all of this because it's really impacting me. And they didn't want to, stand up to them at the time. They just didn't have the strength within them and the courage at that time. And as soon as I did the hedge, within a day, they just went down to 1 time a day, and then it was every couple of days. And then they just, for the time of the hedge, which I usually had it last around 2 weeks, they were like, not there. And then, of course, when I remove the hedge, which I'll talk about in a sec, it starts to come back. And if you want to have that challenge come back, if it's for your higher self, they might come back in, but you're not the same, which we'll talk about. But it's really funny just how those things happen. I mean, I've had another friend, and this will be the last example because I don't want to beat a dead horse, which I probably already have, but it's like no one replied to her text messages. No one would return a phone call after she left it. And she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, you did have the hedge. Oh, that's right. And it was like, it happens. It creates this pocket, and it does push things out to give us the space to reflect and to be. So just FY to the I, if you do these hedges, they do work. And if you're not ready for that pocket, for people to be, kind of this hermit alone time, then don't do it yet because it does work. All right, so I'm going to give you a little instructional on how I go about creating a hedge. And of course, like I said, you can alter it and do whatever you want, but this is just an idea of how I do it. So I start off with getting some sort of mandala or some sort of necklace, and some sort of thing where this represents the hedge. So I create that first, and I just put that in the center and have that. And then I have some sort of stone, some sort of object that represents you or the person that you're doing it for. And so in this case, I have a rose quartz heart that I put in the middle, and that just represents them. And so I start off with a meditation. I also have some sort of object that represents either the challenging person or the challenging situation. And so that goes in here as well, because currently it's with them in their space, right? So I have that, and I start off with this. And then I just start meditating, and I just see this giant ball of love energy come down into me and move out to this person, and then just start forming around them. And then as it forms around, that's when I give this object the choice to convert to light or to go outside of it. And then I physically move this outside of the hedge to where they're at peace within themselves. And so that's when the process starts. And it's like, it'll start immediately, but it can take a few days for them to recognize when the silence happens. But I've had, like I said, where within an hour something happened to someone where they left their life, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then other times it takes a couple days, but it all depends on their situation. Again, asking permission of their higher self for the hedge. I have only had one time out of all the time I asked, they're like, no, not yet. Give it a week before you start the hedge, because they need that extreme situation to go to that place. And they were okay with it. They're like, okay, yeah, let's start it on such and such date. I go, okay. And so then I did. And then what I do is I expand the hedge, which then it goes even bigger, to where this is where the real silence kind of happens, because it's so huge that they have that silence and this time alone in it all. Let me try to get it all within here, and I'll just put the little troublesome situation, not really troublesome, it's just the challenge that we're having. And so they have this beautiful shield around this beautiful ball of love, that they'll feel the warmth, they'll feel the silence. It's not like they'll feel lonely during this time, because they're full of that unconditional love of the other side that's surrounding them. So it's a beautiful experience for them as they go through that. And then, and usually, like I said, this is usually like anywhere between a 10 and a 14-day period, depending on the individual, what's going on. And then I bring light into there. So we'll light a little candle here. And I bring light into their hedge here. And what that does is the light just represents clarity. And during this period of time, it's not like it's just a vacation where this silence comes into our life so that we can just have it nap time, which we will have nap time. We will have a lot of rest during this period because of the silence. But the purpose of this is not just to have a break and then go back to where you originally had, go back into the chaos. It's not like halftime where you go back out and have, you battle again in the same, against the same team with the same information. This is the period where you learn from this. You do this like introspection, you do this evaluation, this reflection, and you look at what's at the root of the fear of the situation, or, like we're talking about, what is that person reflecting back to them to show them what they want to see about themselves, because they will continually have mirrors in their life reflecting back to them, showing them what they want to see about it until they see it. So this break, this hedge, allows you in the calmness outside of all that fear and all that chaotic storm. Like, this is like the eye of the storm, and the chaos is still out here happening, but you're able to see it without feeling it so deeply, able to reflect on it, able to breathe, and have these awarenesses that come. And I usually provide some different tools for different areas of the life that can help them understand things about themselves if they want to take those on. I won't go into that right now, but it is this reflection time, so that that candle just burns, allowing them to have the light shine upon areas of their life, into their subconscious, into their shadow, where they didn't see those things before. And then over time, I'll move the candle out here. So over time, after the candle burns out and they've had that period of time, then again, we contract the hedge a little bit. It's kind of like when you go back from deep sea diving, you don't just come to the surface, because you'll get the bends and it'll impact you. So you don't want it to be like a shock treatment. So I start to shrink the hedge, where it's like the silence. You start to hear the mumblings, but they're still not impacting you, but they're closer to you. So you start to hear it, hear the mumblings, hear those things. And then eventually the hedge dissolves, and, then they're back into their lives. But like you said, it's their choice whether they want this to allow to come back into their life, because they really learn a big power of choice during the time in the hedge. But they also have more tools. It's like I said, like a halftime, and it comes some sort of sport where everyone goes in and they get new information, new strategies, new ways of doing things, or like off season when they train more to come back to compete more. It's like that kind of thing. You have these new tools, these new strengths, this new perspectives that allow you to deal with this individual in a way where they may not, look like this anymore. Like suddenly they're replaced with something brighter, and you see them from a different point of view, and they're not that way. So I really love this hedge process. In fact, in the near future, I'm going to either record or go live on YouTube with a hedge meditation for the world. So for those of you who would like to add and contribute your beautiful love energy to flooding the world with that amazing unconditional love we all have inside of us, just keep a lookout for that. And if you haven't done so, if you subscribe to the channel, then you'll be notified of when that is going to be coming out. And I also will make announcements on my social media, which I have all linked in the description box below as well. And also, if you don't feel ready to create an own hedge for yourself on your own, or if you have someone that you feel could use one, and you'd like me to create one for you or for that other individual, I'm currently offering the hedge process half off right now until the end of April 2022. So with everything that's going on in the world right now, I wanted to help spread as much peace and love as my time allows. So all that information will be listed in the description box below as well. In the next episode, we're going to move into how we can experience the spiritual world through touch. So I'm excited for that. And in the meantime, if you would like more messages of love from above, I also provide free general card readings every month for each zodiac sign, weekly energy updates for each of the elements like fire signs, water signs, etc., and a variety of other videos. So if you do want to be included in those and be notified immediately when those become available, if you give this video a little thumbs up and click this like button, also click the subscribe button. That gives you access to this notification bell. If you go in there, you just select the option for all, and then you'll be notified of any new videos that come out on the channel. Also, doing any of those things helps spread the love. Because when you like a video, you share a video, you comment on a video, or you subscribe to a channel, makes the YouTube algorithm so crazy happy it wants to share the videos of that channel with other people as well. So if you feel inspired to do any of those things, I am grateful for that. Also, all the readings I put out are general readings, and I currently also do offer personal readings if you're looking for even more specific information for your life, and all that information is also listed in that description box below. So all you beautiful souls, I hope this was helpful for you on how to create this hedge of love and peace. If you have any questions, you can comment in the description box below, or you can contact me through one of my other social media or email that are listed down below. I'm happy to answer questions around that as well. So in the meantime, as you go throughout each and every second of every day of your life, please know that you are unconditionally loved by the Creator of all things. And of course, I love you too. Have an amazing week. I'm sure I'll be talking to you very soon. But in the meantime, you hang in there and you take care.